نفوذ طالبان در ارتش افغانستان به یک نگرانی جدی مبدل شده است. طالبان بار حملات را ادامه می‌کنند که بر مواضع نظامیان استفاده کردند، افراد بودند که مرتبط با گروه طالبان بودند. این در واقع چقدر جدی است و چگونه میتوان از آن جلوگیری کرد؟ و موارد دیگر در مورد تقویت ارتش افغانستان را با آقای مایکل دی، مسئول آموزش ارتش در ماموریت آموزشی ناتو برای افغانستان مطرح خواهم کرد. Thank you, Mr. Day, for being in our studio.
Pleasure to be here.
Start from the penetration of the Taliban and the National Army of Afghanistan. As you know, the Taliban claims on the high officials ranking that they attack on them that we done it by the Afghan National Army or National Police that they are engaged with has. How it is serious from the viewpoint of you?
Well, I think there's two things I like to bring out. First of all, of course, the Taliban would have you believe they're responsible for everything. And certainly, they claim to do things and be effective in ways that I'm not sure I agree with. They certainly use children as suicide bombers. They certainly take advantage of people. They're certainly responsible for 70% of all civilian casualties. They are the greatest killers of Afghan people. And so we are concerned, about the infiltration. I've talked about this with Minister Wardak and General Karimi. We have a good, strong 8-step process that identifies who should join the Afghanistan Army and who shouldn't. The Afghanistan Army is a national institution. My sense is Afghans are proud of their army, and it is a tremendous concern when somebody comes in and kills other Afghans or kills their coalition partners. And we pay close attention to it. But when it happens, nobody should think for a moment that it diminishes our determination to help Afghans, help this country, support the Afghan army to bring peace.
Yeah. Which process you will done in the employment time that you prevent from the penetration of the Taliban?
Well, it starts right when they line up for the recruiting center, right on the ground. So we expect them to bring documentation. We do something called biometrics enrollment to see if they've been associated with previous crimes. This is all done by Afghans. Remember, the screening process is of Afghans by Afghans, and it works through to make sure that as best we can, we make sure that we diminish any threats. And I think people need to understand here in Afghanistan is no system can be perfect. One person infiltrating the Afghanistan army is not failure. It is just one person. And so I am utterly convinced that we'll continue to do better. I'm convinced that the screening process will continue to get stronger. But if these tragic events happen again, we will continue to do what we do.
Yeah, it is something that you've done before also, this process that you said. What is the new that you prevent from the penetration of the terrorists on the National Army of Afghanistan?
Well, I'm sorry, what is the...
Yeah, it is something that you've done before, this process that you said for prevent of penetration. What is new?
Well, to say that we've done it before is correct, but we learn every single time, right? And so we've added steps to the screening process, or the Afghanistan Army has added steps to the process. We are much better at linking in between the Army and, in fact, the NDS, and the police. So as opposed to just the Army doing it by themselves, you now see a team of the Afghanistan government actually helping out with that process. We now know better what to look for. So we do have people who come in who are trying to infiltrate, not many. So this process adapts every single time we have an event. I'm not sure that every incident is a result of an infiltration. I think there are people who are putting pressure on some of the Afghan soldiers to do things they otherwise would not do. And that's a typical Taliban tactic. It's cowardice. They threaten families. Your nation has lived through this. They bring pressure to bear to do things. And so there are a number of things, and we pay attention to all of those threat streams.
Start from the turning of the National Army of Afghanistan. How is going this turning process?
Well, the training process can only be described as remarkable. I like to tell people that I don't believe in the history of the world, since the Second World War, that any nation has been faced with such a large challenge and done it as well as Afghanistan. When you think that we really started in earnest, seriously, to build the Afghanistan Army back in November '09, and we now have over 150,000 members trained in the Afghanistan Army, that's a remarkable achievement. And then when you think about it, that when they come in and they go to the Kabul Military Training Center and they do their basic warrior training, all of that training is conducted by Afghan leaders. So, look, is it perfect? No military in the world is perfect, but it is stronger, and every month it gets better. It gets better equipped, it gets better trained. So there are things we need to improve upon. There's always challenges, but it is a remarkable achievement. I'm always surprised that people don't know as much as they should about their army, and that they should be proud. I mean, it's a tremendous achievement by the Afghan leadership.
Yeah, if we talk about the number of the National Army of Afghanistan, as you know, there has been different benchmark for the growth of the Afghan National Army in the 10 years. As you know, it is the 195,000 is the last objective up to the 2014.
Yeah, and of course the target we have for this year is 171.6 thousand, and we're going to get there. Not only are we going to get there, but the quality of the troops that we're putting out now is significantly better, because we've all learned. There is a lot of discussion about where we go forward from there. I think there is absolutely going to be an increase, and you know, we look forward to that being announced. So we're going to continue to build, but we talk about 2014 as if it's the end of the road, but it's not. My sense is Afghans don't want an exit strategy. They want a transition process. And that transition is not only for security, but it's also for training. So you're not going to see the NATO training mission disappear at the end of 2014. We're going to still be here. We're still going to be supporting. We're still going to be helping. So 2014 is a transition to give the lead completely to Afghans for security in their country. It does not mark the end of the international community's contribution to this country.
Yeah, if we talk about the turning of the National Army of Afghanistan, there is a question that have you been work for the motivation of the National Army of Afghanistan? Do you have any definition from the enemy?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I can talk to the enemy perspective. When I look at the role of the Army, when I look at the role of the police in the future, our motivation, and certainly I know I speak with one voice with the Afghan military leadership, is the motivation is to give Afghans a chance to live in a place where they don't need to be frightened, where their lives aren't threatened, where they can bring up their families. And the growth of the Army as it's planned, the quality, the kit and equipment, the leadership, it will get us there in 2014. You know, our hope is that members of the insurgency realize that this is Afghanistan for Afghans, and they decide to be part of that solution as opposed to fight against it.
So you want to talk that you do not have any kind of definition in the turning time that you have for the National Army of Afghanistan from enemy?
I don't think there's a single turning point. I think there are a series of accomplishments. What could you could say, for example, today we are graduating a class out of our Sergeant Major's Academy, third ever course that we've ever run. It is completely run by Afghan instructors and Sergeant Majors. That's a huge turning point, because the backbone of any army is their non-commissioned officer corps. So that's a point. Is it when we get armored vehicles? And the Americans, as you know, have announced $500 million worth of armored vehicles to be given to the Afghanistan Army. Tremendously powerful force. That's a turning point. I'm not sure you can identify a time and place to say it changed here. What you can see is a road. We walk down that road together. There certainly is a time where the security gets passed to the full lead of the Afghanistan government. But I would be I'd be reluctant to say there's a single point. There's a series of achievements. There's a series of challenges. There's a series of goals. And that's certainly how I look at it.
There is questions about the training. Do you think that the 8 weeks training is enough for the Army of Afghanistan?
Which, sorry?
8 weeks.
The 8 weeks. The initial training piece, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, remember, that's only an initial training piece. To try to single out any individual part of the training program and say it's not sufficient ignores that training for a professional soldier continues throughout. I've never stopped training my whole career. I've been in the military for 28 years. So the initial training, I think, will continue to adapt over time. But that's not the only training they go through. So there are people who go through initial training, then they go off to a branch school. We have 12 branch schools now, professional schools that put out military policemen, they put out engineers, infantry soldiers, armored soldiers, logistics people, finance people. So the 8 weeks must be seen as a start point, not a completion. And all militaries around the world never stop training. And that'll be the same of the Afghanistan Army. Down the road, after we've finished growing it, I would anticipate that that course will change, because then you have a standing army.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about the transition process that will be done after maybe 1 month, how do you optimistic for the giving of responsibility by National Army of Afghanistan?
I have been coming to this country since March of '02. I have never been more optimistic than I am today about the Afghanistan Army's ability to assume responsibility for security at the end of 2014. I am convinced that they can do that. Absolutely convinced.
But there are a lot of actions that done in the province of Afghanistan that is under question the responsibility of Afghan government.
Life is full of challenges, right? I think you have a proverb in this country, drop by drop you build a river. And also we won't get there this month. We don't aim to get there this year or in 2012 or in 2013. We aim to get there at the end of 2014. And so, yes, you can look at the number of challenges and ignore the accomplishments, or you can look at the accomplishments and ignore the challenges. Both approaches are wrong. I think that we are tremendously proud of the Afghanistan Army today. We recognize it has more work to do. We recognize that we have time to do that work. We're now just beginning to deepen the quality of the leadership, to provide that technical training, to give them the equipment like the helicopters that were just announced, like the planes. All the schools are up and running now. So yes, if you ask me today, are we ready? No, I don't think so. I don't think anybody could claim that. But are we on a path that gives us every confidence that we're going to be ready at the end of 14? Absolutely, yes.
But as you know, that we have a special interview with the Russian ambassador in Kabul, that he said that the National Army of Afghanistan does not have this quality that give these responsibilities.
And I haven't seen the interview, so I'm not quite sure the context of his answer, and I'm not sure how he measures that.
Yeah, maybe you know about the speech of the special envoy for Afghanistan from Russia.
Right.
That he said also.
Yeah. Now, was he talking about today? Because if he was talking about today, I would agree with him.
Yeah, he talked about today.
Okay, but I just agree that, but in the end of 2014, 2012, 2013, 2014, half of 2011, that's 3.5 years. How old is your TV station?
Yeah.
How old is the TV station here? A couple years old?
Yeah, but maybe no.
Your TV station is
you must
way
know that
better
will be the start, will be the quality table.
Yeah, my point is everybody has humble beginnings. Everybody has to start somewhere. Like this
a weak start or a strong start.
Yeah, that's right. But they start somewhere. It's not where you start that you should be measured at. It's not where you are in the journey. It's where you're going to end up. And armies should focus themselves on what they're going to produce. So I continue to say, I think I have a good understanding of the training system. I see the literacy training that is going on as an example. You know, we're going to hit almost 100,000 people who have had some sort of literacy training in the next couple of months. I look at the equipment. I look at the leadership training. I look at the experience they're getting. I have a hard time imagining how somebody could say at the end of 2014, the Afghanistan Army and the Afghanistan Police will not be ready for the responsibilities. It's a national responsibility. It's a huge challenge, but I think they're going to be there.
Then another question is about the escape of army from the National Army of Afghanistan. What is the number?
I'm sorry?
What is the number of escape from the Army of Afghanistan? Escape of soldiers.
Oh, yeah. This is a challenge. We do have a number of soldiers who leave the Army, and we're trying to identify why that is. And down the road, in a couple of years, I think that if we don't fix that problem, that will be a real challenge for this country. And that may be one of the things that makes it difficult. But today, even though it's a challenge, there are so many young Afghanistan men that want to come and serve their nation. And the training system is now so strong that we can not only train enough people to offset the people leaving, but we can train enough so that the Afghanistan Army continues to grow. So it is a challenge.
Yeah. Do you identify why they escape from the Army?
There are a number of different views. I think that we need to make sure that we continue to look after soldiers a little bit better. I think we're doing that. I think we need to communicate with them a little bit better about that they can join for a whole career. Because remember, they're joining an institution they don't know very much about. They just want to serve their country. What we need to do is explain to them that they can have a career in the Afghanistan Army, and that is a career of honor. That's a career of service. And so I think that we're just going to have to talk to the soldiers a little bit more, look after them a little bit more, make sure that they get a chance to look after their families and get their money to their families. Those sorts of things, I think, will make a difference over time.
Yeah. As you know, there are other questions about the ability of Army, as you said, that they can. But there is a question that in the operation time, when they done an operation in our provinces, they can do it good. But when they do their job in these provinces, they cannot save it.
Afghanistan's has different challenges depending on what part of the country you're in, right? And you know this better than I do. And so if I look at the situation down south compared to the situation in the east and the north, and remember, I'm in the business of building armies, not conducting operations. But I would say to you that based on previous experience, I'm not sure that I've seen anything that the Afghanistan Army isn't equal to. And if it can't do it today, then we're building the capability and the capacity for it to be able to do it next year or the year after. So I think we all have a good understanding of what the threat is. What threatens the people of Afghanistan? Who is killing the people of Afghanistan? It is the insurgency. It is the Taliban. We understand what they're doing, how they're doing it. I believe that the capabilities and the size of the Afghanistan Army, regardless which province they're going to be in, is going to be able to get the job done.
Yeah, so you are sure that you give this definition for the soldiers of Afghan?
It is something we say to them. Be proud of who you are. Be confident in your training. You are serving with honor and dignity. You're serving your country. You have a job to do. And your job will be to provide the security and safety of all Afghans in the whole of the country. And we send these messages from the day they join the Afghanistan Army to the moment they leave training and join the fielded force. And so I think they understand. I think they understand the future of Afghanistan will be on the shoulders of the men and women serving in the Afghanistan Army.
Yeah. The another question is about the negotiation with the Taliban. As you know, the one part is war against terrorism and Taliban, as you said, and the another part is negotiation. What will be the effect of these negotiation part with the Taliban on the National Army of Afghanistan?
The training already includes bringing in members of the Mujahideen who fought previously, and we run a special course for them. And so we have some experience. I think that part of the negotiations, how it will affect the army, will allow young men in villages who want to join but are afraid to join because they're worried that the Taliban will target and hurt their families. They'll feel free to join, and I don't think that we realize just how many Afghans want to serve their country, how many Afghans want peace, and are willing to do something to create their own peace. So I hope those negotiations make those young men feel confident that their families will be safe, which of course is a responsibility they all bear, so they can leave their families and serve their nation.
When the negotiations will be workable, so what war for what, from the viewpoint of view?
I'm not involved, as you know, I'm involved in the training side, so I would be misleading if I talked about the negotiations.
Maybe it is part of training. Yeah, they must know with who will war and with who will negotiation.
Yeah. So like any country, like any family, not every part is all the same. So when we look at the insurgency, when we look at the Taliban, and you would know this better than I do, you can't tell me that all the Taliban are the same, right? Some are absolutely determined, and I think it's a very small number, not to allow peace and security and safety and democracy in this country. But I think there's a group there that actually want those things, but they want to have a voice. And I think that's the group that you have to reach out and speak to.
Yeah,
not the ones who are killing Afghans, not the ones who were responsible for more than 2/3 of all civilian casualties, not the ones who were using kids, children, as suicide bombers. We don't talk to those.
Yeah. What are the main priority for you up to 2014?
Yeah, it's first of all, our first priority is to continue to field the army. What I mean by that is continue to recruit, to train, to equip, and put in the field a strong army. Our focus is within that system, transitioning the leadership and the instruction role to Afghans. And we're well on the way of doing that. Because what we want to see is not just transition in security in Afghanistan. We want to see transition of leadership and ownership of the training system. So in 10 years' time, the young soldiers who are going through the recruiting process now, they're back at schools and they're leading and instructing and teaching in 10 years' time, and they're bringing up the next generation. So our focus is to put Afghans in the lead, make them empowered, and make them symbols of what this nation could and should be.
By which strategy?
Starting at teaching, right? It's hearts and minds. It's giving them the ability to read and write, the ability to count, the ability to lead and to plan. It's skills that are not only necessary for a military to be effective, these are skills for a country to be effective.
The another question is about the equipment of Army of Afghanistan. What you then have to now?
The equipment that the Afghanistan Army is getting is as good as anything in the world. They are getting Western small arms, rifles, and everything else. The vehicles that they are getting are as good as anything. I look at the 3 latest announcements that the Afghanistan Army is going to get. They're getting this family of armored vehicles, 490 of them, that are as good as anything in the world. The American military is going to go buy them. Helicopters, 21 brand new Mi-17s are going to be delivered. There are planes coming in. So when you hear complaints from people who don't know that the Afghanistan Army doesn't have what it needs, that may have been true a year ago or a year and a half ago. But when you look at the units that are coming out of the training system now, they're very well equipped and they're able to get their job done.
Yeah. For the last question, how do you forecast the end of December 2014 than now?
A happy event, right? Great pride in this country. An Afghanistan Army that is not only fully formed, but is professional. It is well equipped. It is well led. And it is a symbol of what this country could and should be. I'm very proud, actually, to be associated with that. One of my memories will be that as we were building a country's military, as we were building a country's future, I was allowed to play a small part in that. That's what I want to see at the end of 2014.
Thank you Mr. Day for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. با سپاس از شما که تا حال بیننده گفتگوی ویژه با جنرال مایکل دی، مسئول آموزش ارتش در ماموریت آموزشی ناتو برای افغانستان بودید. تا برنامه دیگر، خدا نگهدار.